so I don't really know if some of this is true or not, but it's interesting to say the least. When I was a baby, maybe 1 or 2, my family lived in this house in North Dakota. Apparently, my dad kept saying there was this creepy picture of an old woman in the basement that was left behind. Whenever my mom would go down there, the picture was gone. Could have been my dad playing a prank, but he claims to this day that he wasn't. We had 2 Irish setters at the time, and they somehow would be in the yard when my parents would get home from work, even though they left them inside with the doors locked. My brother and I also got this toy for Xmas that was supposed to come with ooze or something similar to that. Somehow the ooze disappeared before we opened it, even though my parents had checked and it was in the box when they brought it home. Finally, remote control cars whittle move in their own without being on. The interesting information we received was that the old woman that lived there before we did had died, had no one to leave the house to. It went on the market. And that's how we came to live there. Apparently she was a bit of a neat freak and hated dogs. Take what to want with that information. But I'm convinced her spirit or ghost was still there, making sure us kids didn't mess up the house, and she tried to get rid of the dogs by letting them out when no one was home.
I'm not sure this counts as a ghost story, but here goes. As a kid growing up in the 80s, my cousin and I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. She basically babysat us every day. She lived in a really old house, one with those floor heaters in the middle of the floor. Anyways, we used to go outside and walk around. The house backed up to a church. Later found out they did a lot with homeless. We were walking around outside and we heard this super deep voice go, "Hey boys." There was absolutely nobody around, and we couldn't explain it. It sent chills up our spine. We told our dads and they laughed it off. We were adamant what we heard, but nobody believed us. Anyways, the next days we dared each other to back out to that same spot and stand there and see if we could hear it again. Fast forward a few days, we were inside eating breakfast and the police knocked on the door and were speaking to my grandmother. Once she came back in, she looked at us and told us we had to stay inside. Today that the police said they were looking for someone. Turns out the voice we heard was one of the homeless people the church had brought in, and he had snuck into my grandmother's basement and had been staying in there. And that guy was eventually caught and ended up being Robert Berdella.
This didn't happen to me, but to my mother. Technically, it did happen to me, as she was pregnant with me when it happened. When my mom was still married to my biological father, they lived in Pensacola, FL. He was an actor at the time, and his troupe performed at the Senja Theater. My mom wasn't allowed to drive due to being muy enchant with me, so he would have to do all the driving. She would often get stir-crazy and suffer cabin fever, so she made him take her with him to dress rehearsals. My mom eventually took it upon herself to help out in the rehearsals. While the actors practiced their lines, the orchestra rehearsed their music, and so on. My mom would move around the theater, taking notes. She would write down any issues she encountered when sitting in different sections of the house, like if a prop or piece of a set blocked the view of an actor from one angle, if one actor's mark happened to obstruct the view of another actor on their mark from another angle, or if the orchestra's performance of Heaven on Their Minds made it difficult to hear Judas singing. At the end of the rehearsal, she would pass her notes along to the director and producer, who would then pass them on to the proper people. During one particular rehearsal, my mom was sitting up in the balcony and proceeded to head back to the main level. The lights were still down, so it was pretty dark, and as she was 7 or 8 months pregnant, couldn't see her feet. She missed a step and nearly fell forwards when she felt something grab her right arm and pull her backwards. It had a very tight grip on her arm and began to pull at her, urging her to go ahead. She proceeded down the steps, noticing the grip not releasing at all. When she got to the landing to the main level, she turned to thank whoever pulled her up, but nobody was there. There were no marks, no bruising, nothing to show her arm was grabbed.
About a year ago, I had 3 paranormal experiences in one day. First was in the afternoon when I was sitting on the couch doing whatever on my phone, when I heard something whisper my name in my ear and felt breath on my neck. Second was when I was sleeping in my mom's room. She was gone at the casino, so I decided to sleep in her bed until she would get home and kick me out. I turned off the light and closed my eyes until I felt something or someone staring at me. I felt so uneasy and had an image in my mind of what it looked like. I imagined it as a silhouette similar to Ryuk from the anime Death Note, but it was taller and had longer arms. Third was when I quickly left the room and went into me and my sister's room, where all of our animals were. I laid down until I heard the doorknob jiggle, like when a toddler is trying to reach for a door but can't quite open it. There was no explanation for this, seeing as all the doors and windows were locked and no one else was home. Even my sister heard it, and until that point, She had never believed in ghosts or spirits. There have also been other times where things have moved by them. Selves in my house and a hole. Other story from before I was born, when the shower turned on by itself. To this day, I swear there was something or someone following me.
A friend of mine, who we'll call Jess, studied in a Catholic school in high school and had many paranormal encounters, but what spooked her out the most was this. It was night and almost everyone had left, but she and her classmates were practicing for some event until late at night in their school. She went to the restroom to pee, and after that, she washed her hands. The restroom had 3 stalls inside and no door, so you could see whoever passes by outside. She was busy washing her hands when it noticeably became cold, like colder than it's ever been in the building. She was beginning to get scared, but shrugged it off as a sudden breeze. That's when a nun appeared on the doorway, wearing bloody clothes and clutching a rosary in both hands. It was walking towards her. Jess screamed then, began citing the words to the Hail Mary. It didn't do anything because halfway, through the prayer, the nun opened its mouth and recited the prayer with Jess. At that point, she knew she couldn't do anything to save herself. If the demonic nun was praying with her instead of backing away, she knew she was effed up, so she did the most reasonable thing at the moment. She passed out and was woken up by a classmate 30 minutes later.
Maybe a bit tame compared to the others, but this was my experience from about 10 years ago. I went with my family to the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, CO, to do a ghost tour. This hotel was built in the mountains at the turn of the last century, and was actually the hotel Stephen King was staying at with his wife when he came up with the idea for The Shining. It's a very cool old building and grounds. We went through the ghost tour, which was a fun experience and a good history lesson on the place. I was taking pictures as we went along, and none of us really experienced anything out of the ordinary. The tour ends on one of the upper floors, which is apparently where guests have reported hearing children running and laughing down the halls in the middle of the night. After the tour, the group exits onto a large balcony and takes a staircase down to a back courtyard. I hung back and let everyone else leave ahead of me and took a few pictures of the empty hallway. After I got home at the end of my trip, I downloaded the photos, and as I was going through them, I noticed the last image of the empty hallway had what looked like a cloud of cigarette smoke floating in the center of the image. I got chills instantly. At the time of the photo, I was the only person in the hallway, and there was no smoking on that floor or on the balcony, and no cooking going on either. It was very strange.